IELTS format. We're going to give you a really good understanding of the exam setup so that you're very well prepared and know what's coming. Now, when it comes to the format, there are just a few things you need to understand. And then after we explain this to you, we can move into the very specific strategies that are going to lead to your success. On the IELTS exam, there are 4 equally graded parts that are scored 0 to 9 on a rubric. Now, in terms of the structure of the exam, when you go into the exam center, you're going to first take the listening section, then reading and writing, which will all occur on the same day. Now, when it comes to the speaking section, this can either come or it can happen 1 to 5 days before your listening, reading, and writing, or it can happen 1 to 2 days after. But it's never going to be on that exact same day as your listening, reading, and writing. Or I should say it would rarely happen. It has happened, but it's very, very rare that that happens. Now, it's important for you to understand that the IELTS exam is a test of your English ability, not your intelligence. It's not a test of student intelligence. They're not trying to see how smart you are. They want to know, what is your English ability? Is it very advanced, intermediate? Is it university level? They want to know your English ability. And that's really important to understand because a lot of students fail to keep improving their English while they're trying to study IELTS strategies and tactics. Now, in terms of the test sections, there's the listening section, which comes up first, and that is 40 total questions. 30 minutes for the test, 10 minutes to transfer your answers. Then you have 4 alternating sections, and what I mean by that is you have conversations and solo presentations. The questions are either going to be multiple choice or fill the blank, some form of that, some form of multiple choice or fill the blank. Now, when it comes to the reading section, you also have 40 questions and you're given 60 minutes. You have 3 sections, so basically you have 20 minutes to finish one reading passage. And in general, typically, the reading section passages get progressively more difficult. So reading passage 3 is a lot more difficult than reading passage number 1. So you need to keep that in mind when it comes to your timing. Now, there are 14 basic question types. Some question types they really don't focus on anymore. And throughout this course, we'll kind of point that out to you. Now, some questions go in order, others don't go in order. And when we get into the reading section of this course, we will point that out to you because that's really, really important information. Now, when it comes to the writing section, if you're doing the academic test, you're going to have task number 1, which is going to be a chart, graph, diagram, or process. If you're doing the general test, your task number 1 is going to be a letter. It will either be a formal or informal letter type. Now, for the academic and the general, they both have task number 2, which is a standard essay. Now, moving on to the speaking section, there are 3 parts to the speaking section. Section 1 is a short live interview with the examiner. Section 2 is a 2-minute solo presentation in front of the examiner. And part number 3, or section 3, are follow-up questions that have the same subject matter as part number 2. Now, I have a lot of students that ask me about the differences between the academic and the general. And so this is where I'm going to kind of point some differences out to you. Most of it is exactly the same. In the academic exam, you have a listening section, reading section, writing task 1, and writing task number 2. And of course, the speaking test. For the general exam, the listening section is exactly the same. The reading section is different only in terms of the difficulty of the passage. The questions are the same. Writing task number 1 is of course different. Writing task number 2 is the same. Speaking section is the same. Next, students then like to ask me, well, what's the difference between the paper exam and the computer exam? Well, for the paper exam, you have listening, reading, writing, and speaking. The computer exam, exactly the same. Difficulty level, exactly the same. Question types, exactly the same. The results are different. Paper exam, 13 days. Computer exam is going to be 5 to 7 days. Paper exam in terms of marking and the computer exam, marking is the same. Now, in terms of the skills, when students ask me questions like, which test should I do? Should I do the computer or should I do the paper test? It depends on your skill set. If you have very good computer skills, you're very comfortable with a keyboard, then you might want to take the computer-based test. If you're not, take the paper-based test. Coming up next, I'm going to be going over a course review where I'm going to give you some really just general information of what you can expect in this course. You're going to learn exactly what we have to offer and why this is the best course for you. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you very much, and I'm going to enjoy being your teacher for the IELTS exam. Now that you have an understanding of the IELTS exam format, it's now time for us to present our IELTS Band 7 Plus course introduction. We're going to give you an overview of what you can expect to receive from this course. Now, this course will cover the academic exam, the general exam, and present information for the computer-based exam test. So when I say this is a complete course, I really mean it. If you're doing the academic exam, there's a syllabus for you. In addition to that, there's a general exam syllabus that lets you know what sections apply to your exam type. So, what will you receive from this course? Well, we're going to definitely give you practical strategies and tactics that make your success on the exam much, much easier. The word practical there is very, very important because not only do I tell you what to do, I then demonstrate for you how it's done. The tactics and strategies are very practical. That means that they're easy to use. That means that they work on the exam. They're not just theory. They're practical, tried, and proven strategies. Now, as you heard me say earlier, with this course, you're going to get the academic and general exam information. We do give you a syllabus that explains what sections apply to your exam. In addition to that, we're going to provide you teacher-led examples for the exam section questions. We're going to give you some examples that are by me that are going to explain exactly how to apply strategy. You see, very often you may go to a website or read a book and they just tell you this is what you do. But we are actually showing you step by step how to apply our strategies. In addition to that, we strongly believe that by taking this course, you're going to get higher scores. As you can see from the reviews, there are hundreds of students, thousands of students that have scored 7+. In addition to that, you'll note that we have more than 3,000 5-star reviews. This is a very, very highly rated course because we give you a lot. We provide you everything that you need within a course. In addition to those things, we also are going to provide you a few more benefits. As I said earlier, step-by-step strategy instruction. Other courses just say, do this, do A, B, C, D. In this course, I'm going to hold your hand and walk you through it step by step. In addition, we also provide a monthly live group class. At least once a month, there's a live group class where I'm going to cover a reading topic, a listening topic, or a writing topic, but it's a monthly live group class. And a lot of students really find that really helpful because they're able to be in a live session, a live group session, and discuss and talk about strategy application and practice along with me. So that's something that's really helpful for them. Finally, we make constant course adjustments. Unlike other courses, we are constantly monitoring the current exam for hints to let you know what they're focusing on more than anything right now. Okay, in regards to the listening section of this course, we're going to focus on the following things. We're going to help you learn how to predict the possible answer choice and notice when the correct answer is being stated. In addition to that, we're going to provide you methods that have allowed our students to score 35 to 40 correct on the listening test. Now, of course, you need to have the requisite English ability to be able to do that, to match our strategies, but we've helped a lot of students achieve that goal. In addition, we're going to help you to identify keywords and questions and how to connect those keywords to the answer choices. Finally, we're going to help you by modeling how to listen and write answer choices simultaneously. Okay, now you know what we're going to focus on in the listening section. So let's go ahead and move forward to the reading section of the course and let you know what we're going to focus on. We're going to teach you how to really identify keywords. Identifying keywords is really key to doing well on this exam, because if you can identify the keywords in the question, you can be able to scan much easier through a passage and also have more accuracy in your answer choices. In addition to that, we're going to give you assistance with being able to relate or connect answer choices to synonym language. Finally, we're going to give you some techniques to help you to identify the proper strategy to apply to every single question type. Now, let's go ahead and move forward to the writing section. When it comes to writing, of course, you have academic task 1 and general task 1. And for the academic, we're going to help you by giving you one organization, one type of structure that fits the process, graph, chart, or diagram. Just one structure, right? There's not a different structure for every single type. We're going to help you learn how to do this. For the general task number 1, we're going to help you to be able to write and organize the general letter in a way that really impresses the examiners. Now, for task number 2, we're going to give you a lot of modeling of how to present an essay that examiners want to see, and we're going to give you strategies and tactics that allow for you to have great time management and to express the highest skills according to the rubric. Finally, on the speaking course, we're going to do a lot of teaching and modeling of how to provide responses that examiners expect. In addition to that, we're going to give you direct advice from former examiners that graded IELTS speaking tests, and they're going to tell you what they're looking for on the speaking test. In addition to that, there's a lot of student practice that you can do inside of our speaking course. We have embedded student practice for sections 1, 2, and 3, where you can self-practice all of our strategies and tactics that we teach you. Finally, we're going to help you with avoiding those common errors in pronunciation, grammar, and lexical ability. These are the steps that you need to take to be able to really benefit from this course. Number 1, take lecture notes. The way that I teach this course is just like you were in person, right? I've been teaching the IELTS exam for decades now, and really, it's up to you to be able to take course lecture notes. If you don't take course lecture notes, you're going to forget. You're going to forget a lot of the information because once I say it, it's gone. And you want to keep really good notes, just like you're in the classroom. Also, it's very important that you immediately practice the strategies and tactics that we teach. When I teach you something and you see me apply it, then it's time for you to go practice doing the strategy, applying the strategy. Also, after you've learned everything, make sure that you really simulate actual test conditions. I've heard so many students come to me and say, well, in my reading practice, I'm able to get 35 correct. But then when I go take the real exam, I'm only getting 25 correct. What's wrong? And very often they're not simulating the actual test conditions, which is really, really important. Fourth, if I explain a strategy or a tactic in the course and you don't understand it, ask me questions to clarify. And then finally, create a study schedule. It's very, very important that you create a study schedule. This is going to help you to be consistent. I can't create a schedule for you. Only you know your time commitments that you have. Only you know if you're only able to study on the weekend or during the weekday. You have to be able to create your own study schedule and really, really stick to it. I'm your instructor, Keno Campbell. I designed this course, and you can see from these 3 parts that I am very, very well qualified to be able to teach you how to have success on the IELTS exam. Coming up next, you'll be able to look at our course syllabus, the academic syllabus, and the general syllabus. If you have any questions along the way, please feel free to ask. Thanks for joining us, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay, so in our course that we have for you, the IELTS Complete course, where we're teaching you how to do the IELTS exam, we are big proponents. We really support using the Cambridge books for your practice material. We're going to be using different Cambridge books to teach this class and to teach this course. So I encourage you to go out and buy the books. You can get them online. You can get them maybe at some of your local stores. But we're teaching this course online, but I think it's a really good idea for you to physically have the book. The reason why I say that you should physically have the book is because the IELTS exam is a paper-based test. And so when you're doing your practice, right, you're going through our course and we're teaching you how to do it. We're explaining to you the best ways to do it. When you're going through our course, we want you to really, we're teaching you method, strategy, tactics, so you can get a really high score. But when you're practicing by yourself, you don't need to practice on a computer. You need to practice with paper because the real exam is all about paper. So I tell students, as you're going through the course with me, and you're learning what to do, I think it's really good for you, IELTS Book 8, Book 9. I think it's really, really good for you to have the book with you so that sometimes you can stop the lecture before I go through an example and you can do it on your own. Okay, you can do it on your own, and then you can be able to then look at the lecture and see how I really explain the answers in terms of how you get the answers. Also, if you get your own books, you're going to be able to replay the audio again that I have. You can replay the tape again that I have, listen to it again, so you can really go through it slowly and listen to the things that I'm talking about in terms of answers and how to find answers. So there are a lot of really good benefits to your going through it. But the books that we really use are Cambridge books 7, 8, 9, and 10.
and we use maybe a little bit of number 11 also. But I really think that you should get the books. I have all the books. I make all my students that I teach in person to have the books, so that we're doing things correctly and properly in terms of preparation for the exam. So again, get out there, get your books, have your physical copies of the books, so that you are able to really follow along with us. Play the audios over if you need to play them over, or you want to listen to them in a different kind of way, and you can have all the best practice materials. Because if you want to do well, you have to listen to the lectures that I give you and then go practice them. You can't just listen to my lectures, okay? In order for you to really get it, listen to my lectures, listen to the strategy that I teach, understand the strategy that I teach, and then go practice it, okay? Keep practicing it until you get it. If you have any difficulty in your practicing, if you have any challenges in your practicing, let me know what kind of questions you're having difficulty with. I'll be more than happy to kind of give additional video lessons on some of the problems that you guys have, so I can explain those problems for you. Okay, that I have no problem with that. I would love to do that for you. But I don't get paid by Cambridge. I'm not an employee of Cambridge. I just think that these are the best books, and that these are the books that you should get. And also, these are the books that we're using to teach this class. Okay, so let's get into the course. I'm ready to teach you how to get that score of 7 or 8 or even 9 for some of you if you have great English. So I'll talk to you soon, and it's been great.
You've just finished the reading section of the course, and now you are taking the listening. Our goal is to give you exactly what you've been looking for, which is knowing when the answer is being said during the exam. We're going to do this by teaching you all of our secret strategies that enable you to know when the answer is being said by the speaker. The listening section can be a little bit tricky and difficult for some students, but really, after you've taken the time to watch all the lectures in this section of the course, you'll realize that it's just a matter of technique and strategies. We're going to give you everything that you need to succeed on this section of the test. Good luck, and thank you for joining us. Hi there, and thank you for trusting me to help you along on your IELTS journey. We're now going to get into our analysis of the listening exam on the IELTS. This is the listening section of our course, so let's go ahead and get started. So, in regards to the basics of the listening test, as we've told you before, and we're going to repeat that information right now, there are 40 questions on the exam. There are 40 questions on the exam. You have a total of 40 minutes on the IELTS listening test. 30 of those minutes are for the actual exam, and then after the exam is finished, you're given 10 minutes to transfer your answers from the test sections to the answer sheet. Now, it's perfectly fine if you want to write your answers directly on the answer sheet right away. But some students like to put their answers on the actual test itself, and then they give you 10 minutes afterwards to transfer your answers. So the total amount of time is 40 minutes. Now, there are 4 sections, 10 questions per section. 4 sections. And those 4 sections are going to alternate between conversations and solo presentations or lectures. In section number 1 is a conversation between 2 people. Section number 2 is going to be a general solo presentation by one person on a general life topic. Then section number 3 is going to be a conversation, but most of the time it's going to be between 2 to 3 people. And then finally in section number 4, they're going to give you really more of an academic kind of lecture. Now, throughout the entire listening test, you really are going to encounter only 2 main question types. Every question is some variation on multiple choice or fill the blank questions. So let's look at section number 1. First of all, please note that there's been a recent change in the exam where they have eliminated the example at the start of section number 1. I really think that they started doing this because students used to use the time for the example to read through section 2, section 3 of the exam. And so they kind of wanted to eliminate that. That's my belief. Now, section number 1 will be a conversation between 2 people, and it will be on some everyday life topic: booking, working, event plans. Typically, it will be a fill the blank question. However, it is possible for you to receive some simple multiple choice type of questions also. Okay, so now let's go ahead and move forward with section number 2 of the listening. Now, this is going to be normally a non-academic short presentation on some type of general life topic. They're going to be talking about some new center that opened, some new community project that's going on. That's what they're going to talk about, something they're developing new in the community, but it's going to be one person speaking. Now, you have like a 50-50 shot of having multiple choice or fill the blank questions. Section number 2 is a little bit harder than section number 1. Not a lot, not much more difficult than section number 1, just a little bit more difficult. Now, in section number 2, this is where you will most likely encounter a map question. The map question does not happen every single test, but normally when they do have a map question, it's going to be in section number 2. All right, section number 3. Now, you notice that first we had a conversation, then a solo presentation. Now we're back to a conversation. The only difference is this time, most likely, the conversation is going to be between 2 to 3 people. More and more on the exam, this conversation has been between 3 people. Normally a student, 2 students, and a professor talking about some type of academic project that they're working on. Again, you're going to have multiple choice and fill the blank questions. Section 3, more difficult than section 2. How do they make it more difficult? Well, they're going to have longer answer choices. So in section 2, the answer choices might be 4 words, 5 words maximum, 3 or 4 words. In section number 3, answer choices can be much longer, 5 words, 6 words, 7 words long. In addition to that, they make it more difficult by raising the level of vocabulary. In section number 1, they're using a lot of basic level vocabulary. Section number 2, I would say, is probably more lower intermediate. When we get to section number 3, now we're talking about intermediate to upper intermediate type of vocabulary. So that's how they make it more difficult. Question types are the same. Question types are the same. Question possibilities are the same, except for you're not going to really see a map question. All right, now with question number 4, these are the basics of question number 4. This is where you get into much more of an academic lecture. This is the most difficult section of the exam in terms of listening. There's no break in between. You know, in some of the other sections, you'll hear a break between the first 5 questions and the next 5 questions. Here, they're going to go all the way from question 31 to 40. Again, more difficult because the nature, the topics are much more academic, and also the vocabulary level is definitely upper intermediate to advanced. The answer choices that you have to listen for are going to be more difficult to spell because they're going to be words that are upper intermediate to advanced. So that's how they're playing around here. That's what they're doing to make it more difficult for you. But you can do it, you can handle it. It's just a matter of you being able to watch out for the tricks and the traps that they're using and practicing the right kind of way. And we're going to teach you how to do that. Here is some helpful information when it comes to the IELTS exam. As you've heard me say a few times already, it gets progressively more difficult. So that means that in sections 1 and 2, you have to do a very, very good job in sections 1 and 2. Because section 3 is more difficult, section 4 is very difficult. The test gets progressively more difficult. Next, the listening for the IELTS is listening comprehension. It's not a listening test. And that distinction is very, very important for you to understand. A listening test might be, listen for this word that I said and then write down that word. Right? Listening comprehension is where they are trying to test your ability to comprehend what you heard. And they do that by playing around with synonym language and paraphrasing a lot. You have to be able to comprehend what you heard. Now, the questioning format is important for you to understand because in every section, or now they're calling it parts. Before they used to call it section 1, section 2, section 3, section 4. Now they're calling it part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. But the questioning format, the questions come one after the other. Question 1, as soon as they finish giving the information to answer question number 1, they're going into question number 2. They're not giving you any time. There's only a short break between each section. But during the, and then also there's a short break, like in section 1, they'll do questions 1 to 5, and then they'll give you some time to look at questions 6 through 10. All right? But the questions are going to come one after the other. There's no time for note taking. You have to be able to listen and write simultaneously. That's the answering process. Your spelling must be perfect. Okay? Your spelling must be perfect. That's really, really important. And you cannot, please read the instructions because you cannot go over the word limit. All right, coming up next, we're going to go over the listening question types, and we're going to introduce you to some of the basic strategies surrounding the listening question types. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for joining me. Now that you have a general understanding of the listening exam in terms of its structure and how it's set up, I'm going to now present for you some basic information about the different question types that you're going to encounter or see on the listening exam. So there basically are 5 different question types that you're going to have to deal with on the listening exam. They all are some variation of a fill-the-blank or multiple choice question. You have the fill-the-blank traditional question where it's a sentence that's either in the middle of the line, middle of the sentence, or a blank line at the end. You also have a map or diagram, which could be fill-the-blank or multiple choice. You have a table or flow chart, which is fill the blank. You have the multiple choice standard, where you have to pick one answer, A, B, C, or D. Or you have the multiple choice choose two, where you have to choose two correct answers from choices of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or A, B, C, D, E. And then you have a matching question where you might have some selections in a box, and the questions have something that the person said or something connected to the person, and you have to match. Again, that is a form of multiple choice. So first of all, let's go ahead and go over the fill the blank question types, so that when you see these question types on the exam, you'll know exactly what you're supposed to do. You'll know that it's a fill the blank question. You'll know what to expect. You'll know the strategy. So let's go ahead and move forward with our examples of the fill the blank questions. So as I said, you have a fill the blank traditional question type. And this is where you have just blank lines that you have to fill out. There's some language before the blank line, such as number 2 that you see here on the screen, or like number 3, where the blank line is in the middle of the sentence. But the strategy for a traditional blank line question is very, 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 very straightforward. You have to, of course, underline the keywords that are before the blank line or after the blank line. That's very, very important. You have to basically underline those keywords, because those keywords are going to point you to the answer choice. They're going to point you to the answer choice. In addition, you want to make sure that you underline the noun, the subject and the object, because that's going to help you know when the answer choice is being given. But in terms of the answer will always connect to that language that's before and after the blank line. Also keep in mind that they're most likely are going to use synonyms here. So use synonyms, or they're going to probably maybe reorder the sentence where they say the object first instead of the subject. In addition to that, you got to make sure that you write your answers immediately when you hear them. Okay, if you hear something that you think is the answer, write it right away. Don't wait. That's not something that you want to do. You don't want to do that. The other question type that we have to deal with is a fill the blank question that is a table. Again, it's still a straightforward fill the blank type of question, but it's in the table format, right? Just the table format. So you see, like here for number 7 on the screen here, it says kilometers. You're going to be listening out for a certain number. And in the next lecture, we're going to explain to you about the tricks and the traps that they use. The tricks and the traps that they use that make these questions somewhat challenging. It's a table here, but it goes in order. Like all fill the blank questions, it goes in order. You want to write your answers immediately and listen for synonyms or listen for possible reordering of the sentence. But here, like in this one, there are no sentences on the table, right? This one is very, very straightforward. And this one that you're looking at right now is probably from section 1. The next fill the blank question that you can encounter will most likely happen in section number 2, and it's a map. But it's still basically a fill the blank question. You're just filling in the blank lines on a map. So when you're doing a map question, you want to note all of the map areas, not just where the blank lines are, but note all of the map areas. So in terms of where the lake is, the reception area, the rare breed section, the grazing area, the marsh, all of the areas. The reason why is when they're giving you the answer to number 12, they're going to connect it to grazing area and marsh. They're going to connect it some kind of way. You also want to know your directions, north, south, east, and west, because they're going to again connect answer choices to directions. Also, what you want to make sure that you do, or that you're aware of, is that very often with a map question, they'll take you back to the reception area and start over to take you in a different direction. The map area can be challenging for some students, but you have to really, really watch out for directional language. That's what they're testing here. They're testing your ability to recognize directional language. Next to, above, northeast corner of, across, next to, below. Right? So that's what you have to be able to really, really listen out for with that kind of question type. Now, let's go ahead and look at some of the multiple choice question types that you're going to encounter on the IELTS listening section. You of course have the traditional type, where you have a question like number 15 and you have answer choices A, B, and C to choose from. And then it's going to move to question number 16, then 17, then 18. All of the questions go through order, go in order. And so what you're doing here is you have to be able to quickly read through the questions, and you want to underline the keywords in the questions. Underline the keywords in the questions. I didn't say the answer choices. Underline the keywords in the questions, because that's what's going to help you. That's what's going to help you to be able to know when the answer is being said. Now, if you've gone through and you've underlined all of the keywords in the questions and you still have time, then you can go back and maybe look at some of the language in the answer choices. But you have to be careful doing that, because what you're doing here with this type of multiple choice question is you're not listening for exact words that they say. That's not what you're listening for. They're going to connect wrong answers to exact language. So very often when students are looking at the answer choices and they're saying, okay, let me look at these words in the answer choices, and then when I hear one of those words, I'm going to pick that answer. That's the wrong choice. Right? Correct answers are going to use synonyms. The way it works is when they're having a conversation, they're going to say the answer, or if it's a solo presentation, they're going to say the keyword language from the question, and then they're going to say the answer, but they're going to use synonyms. Okay? They're going to use synonyms. Then you have the multiple choice question, which is a pick two style of question. It's a pick two style of question. And here they're asking you to make two choices. So in the example that you see there to the right, it says, which two hobbies was Thor very interested in as a youth? And you have to pick the two choices that he says he was interested in. All right, the two choices. In terms of answer placement, it doesn't matter when you write your answers, if you make number 10D and number 11B, or you write it B and D, it does not matter, right? It does not matter. Now, again, most likely when you hear the answer choices, the correct answer choices will use synonyms. They may not say the word climbing directly or the word hunting directly. They may use language to describe what that is. They're testing if you can make that match. That's the test. That's the test. The wrong answers will very often use exact language. Now, sometimes when you have it like with the first one where it's single words, A, B, C, D, E, it's possible that a correct answer might be stated exactly. However, when we look at 23 and 24, and you see where the answer choices are much longer, again, we're probably talking about the difference between having a question, having a question style in part 2 and part 3. But the questions in 23 and 24, or the answer choices, are much longer. And so they're going to use synonyms to make it more difficult. But remember, answer placement does not matter. And then, of course, you can have a multiple choice question where you have to choose from a box. And here, of course, an answer choice can be used more than once. Because if you look to the right, you have 6 questions and you have 3 choices in the box. So an answer choice can be used more than once. So here what you want to do now, Keep in mind the questions go in order. So you're going to hear the language for 15, then 16, then 17, then 18. Be aware they may use synonyms. They may not say booking holidays. They may say reserving a vacation, right? But it goes in order. They're not going to give number 19 and then give number 15. It goes in order. But you want to note the language in the answer choice, in the language in the questions, so you recognize when they're giving that answer. But also, really, really pay attention to the answer choices A, B, and C. Identify the keywords. So for example, in A, you have the word encouraged. You have to really, really think about what synonym language are they going to be able to use for that word. Because they're not, and when in the conversation or in the solo presentation, they're not going to say the word encouraged. They're going to say synonyms of that. And you have to be able to pick up on that match. They're not going to say it's against the rules. They're going to give synonyms of that. Okay? Now, in the upcoming lectures, when I'm really going through strategy application, I point out the synonym language that they're using. So you can really, really see how that's being done. Right, and here is the same choosing from a box question, but you can see from the numbers 37 to 40, now we're in section number 4, and look at how they've increased the difficulty level. The answer choices in the box, the answer choices in the box are now 6 instead of 3. The answer choices in the box are longer. The questions are a little bit longer. But that's how they really raise the level of difficulty. Same question type, but that's what they're doing to increase the difficulty level. Okay, and coming up next, I'm going to give you some listening question tips, some advice, and some suggestions so you can have a lot of success on the listening part of the exam. Thanks for joining us, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay, everybody, it's now time for some tips and advice on the listening section. In this lecture, I'm going to really tell you what you should be doing before the audio starts, during the audio, and after the audio is finished. So let's go ahead and move forward. This is the IELTS listening exam tips and advice. So first of all, just some general tips, some general things that you should know. Number 1, in terms of the keywords, always underline, circle, or highlight the keywords because those are going to point you to the answer choices, right? Keep in mind, you got to listen for synonyms here. Number 2, spelling. I get a lot of messages from students asking me about spelling. If I say this word instead of this word, is it correct? All right, so they'll write me questions that say, the answer is program, but I wrote reprogram. Is that still correct? And my answer always is, no, that's not correct. You can't do that. The only time where you see 2 possible answer choices is really when you're dealing with a plural, like the plural S, because sometimes the answer can be a plural S or a singular depending on the grammar in the sentence, the way the grammar is structured within the sentence. But your spelling must be perfect. Now, let me say, during the exam, when you're actually listening and writing answer choices, don't worry about the spelling so much. If they give you a really long word like refrigerator, you can just hyphenate that on the test booklet. Because remember, later on, they're going to give you 10 minutes to transfer your answers. And that's when you can go ahead and spell out refrigerator. Okay? But sometimes, if during the exam, when you're actually taking the exam, and they give a really long word like rendezvous or or information or refrigerator, right? If you're busy trying to spell out a really long word, magnificent. If you're spelling out a really long word and taking too much time, they're going to move on. So on the test booklet, you can go ahead and abbreviate. On the answer sheet, you cannot abbreviate. You cannot do it. You can't do it, okay? You must write out the full answer and spell it perfectly correct. Now, in terms of writing answers, when you hear an answer stated or you believe you hear an answer stated, write it down. If you then hear something else that you think is the answer, write that down. You can cross out the other one with your pencil, okay? But go ahead and write it down right away. Because if you try to just listen, and then go back and try to write something, you get behind in the audio, and then you're finished. Finally, in terms of prediction, it is possible to predict if the answer is going to be a noun or a verb, number, address. Prediction is very, very helpful on this exam. Now let's talk about listening before the audio. Number one, read the instructions. You can't believe how many students get 5 or 6 wrong because they did not read the instructions. Number two, note the subject matter. Note the subject matter. Because if they're going to give a short presentation on a new sports center, then a lot of the answer choices might be sports related answer choices. Always read for keywords. Identify the keywords. It helps you identify the keywords in the questions because this really helps you know when the answer is being said. Number four, think about synonyms. Really think about synonyms, especially for the fill the blank questions when you're identifying the words before and after the blank line. Think about synonyms. Think about synonyms for multiple choice questions, because the correct answer choices are going to be synonyms for the answer that's stated in the conversation or short presentation. Number five, is very helpful to know the form of the answer that you're going to get. Name, address, number, noun, verb. And then finally, you got to get through the questions, right? When they give you the time, the 25 seconds to look over the questions or the 15 seconds to look over the questions, you got to get through all those questions in that time period and identify the key words. Because again, that's going to help you know when they're about to tell you the answer, or it's going to help you know the language that's connected to the answer choice. So that's really, really important. Now, during the audio, this means while you're listening and writing answers, listen out for signposting. Right? Signposting is language that lets you know that somebody is shifting from one part of a conversation to another part of the conversation. So for example, in section number 3, if it's 2 or 3 people talking, very often one of the students will say the answer choice, the correct answer choice, and the other student will say, okay, that sounds good. That means they're done. And they're now moving from question number 24 to question number 25, right? That's what they're doing. Also, during the audio, you have to listen out for paraphrasing. You've heard me say this over and over and over again. It's all about paraphrasing and synonym language. Number 3, you have to continuously listen. Continuously listen. That means when you're writing an answer choice, you cannot shut off your ears and stop listening, because they're still talking. They're moving on and giving information that's going to lead you into the next question. They don't give an answer choice, stop, wait for you to write down the answer, and then keep going. Also, don't get stuck. If you're not sure of an answer choice, move forward. Don't get stuck. If you get stuck, you get behind. Next, number 5, you see the word there, understanding. And I need to explain this because that's actually something that you should not try to do, right? You should be listening for answer choices that are connected to keywords. Where a lot of students mess up is they're listening during the exam and they're trying to understand the topic that the person is speaking on about whale development, the history of whale development. And they're trying to really comprehend and understand the subject matter. And that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're not testing your intelligence, right? But when you sit there and try to listen to the subject, understand the subject matter, you're really, really going to get behind just miss answer choices. Now, of course, after the audio, there's some things you need to pay attention to. Of course, transferring answers. You're provided 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. Spelling must be perfect on the answer sheet. You cannot abbreviate. You cannot write a synonym. If you don't know an answer choice, guess. There are some standard traps that you should listen out for. Number 1, sentence reordering. Very often, when they're speaking in the conversation or in a solo presentation, they'll take the object of a question and make it the subject. They'll reorder the words. Right? They'll move around the blank line. What's the answer? What's the answer that goes on the blank line? So you have to be aware of sentence reordering. Number 2, be aware of synonym language, right? Very often the language before the blank line will be a synonym match in the audio, and you have to pick up on that because that's what the answer is going to be connected to. Be aware of exact language traps. This happens a lot with multiple choice questions. Also, when you get up into sections 3 and 4, or parts 3 and 4 now, they have the delayed response. And what I mean by that is they'll give you the answer for number 26. And then they'll just keep talking about whatever the subject is in number 26. They'll just keep talking about it. So they're delaying before they get to the information for number 27. And they do that so that, for students that have a lower level of English, they're going to get lost. They're going to think, well, wait a minute, is this information now dealing with number 27? No, they're just speaking some extra time about the topic for the previous question. Next, multiple options. If you have an answer choice that's dealing with a number, very often they're going to give multiple numbers. They're only going to give the correct number connected to the keywords in the question. And then watch out for self-correction. Sometimes a person will say an answer choice, and then they'll say, oh, wait, I didn't mean that. What I really meant to say is this. So you have to be aware of the self-correction. Okay, and coming up next, we're going to now get into listening strategy application, right? For sections 1 to 4, listening strategy application.